Hey, it's me again. Okay, so we're still in astrology and history. We're doing ancient Khemet, Egypt, which is the best. It's probably going to be more than one video because it's a lot, so we'll see. From the second book, An Intermediate's Guide to the Mystery Sciences by me. Okay, the legends of ancient Khemet. Before the secrets of the pyramids were betrayed to the men of the north, Egypt was a very private nation. Mayat, or harmony, was their greatest tradition. Ruled by the laws of Mayat, they were obliged to take in foreign travelers and even allow them to marry their daughters, provided they did not take them out of the country. Uninterested in conquests, which would enlarge Egyptian territory for fear of dying on foreign soil, and unparalleled in mathematics, science, and funerary medicine. Egypt was once the envy of the world. Intermingling with foreign nations, however, was the downfall of Khemet. The Christian Bible mentions Egypt as a mighty nation in its first book of Genesis. First, when Abraham sold his wife for slaves, animals, gold, and room and board. Genesis 12 is like he said she was his sister when they got to Egypt. And again, when Joseph, Abram's descendant through the wife he sold after she was returned by the Egyptian pharaoh, was sold to Ishmaelites, when Joseph was sold to Ishmaelites, who are descendants of Abram through his abandoned son from his purchased Egyptian slave, and taken there to Egypt, Genesis 37, by their slavers. At this point in the New Kingdom, Egypt had already, it's like 1440 BC. Egypt had already lost much of its original belief system, replacing the old kingdom gods with newer ones or combining old and new gods to their convenience. They did that a lot with like Amun-Ra and stuff like that. The kings of Old Kingdom Egypt were seen as descendants of the gods, who lived among the Egyptians as intermediaries and the governors of Mayat. Their tradition of maintaining royal bloodlines by incest was often copied by its northern neighbors, who attributed its origin to their gods, which they stole from Egypt. In this way, it was considered righteous. Though Egypt at this time was contemporary with Mesopotamian and Oriental marvels, none could deny the mystical nature of the Black Land, with its pyramids as a shining example of superior understanding of cosmic laws. Early dynastic period Egypt. So, okay. Old Kingdom is like closer to us. Closer to us. So like, as far as we are from zero, positive, it's like that far negative. Does that make sense? Old Kingdom Egypt, right? So then early dynastic period Egypt is earlier than that, farther from us. Like 3150 BCE to like 26 something BCE. Okay, so early dynastic period Egypt was also ruled by the divine kings who preceded the pharaohs of future dynasties. These kings inherited a divided nation of Upper and Lower Egypt, each with its own ruler and sacred deities. The first king of this period, Menes, united the two nations and combined the two cultures into what is now Egyptian culture. It was here in Mennefer, or Memphis, that was Memphis, Egypt, on the Nile Delta, where Egypt and Greece became acquainted. The greatest libraries and temples were built here to educate the sons of the kings and the wealthy men of the north alongside Egyptian princes and scholars. It was in this age of accomplished civilization that Egypt sold out to the foreign tourists and lost its soul. And then you have like the Ptolemies. Pre-dynastic Egypt, now we're going back even farther, like 6000 BC to, the 3150. Pre-dynastic Egypt was the origin of what is left of true Egyptian culture. After the world flood, like all cultures, Egypt had to start over. They were nomadic for a time, hunting and gathering for survival, though there seems to have been some tribes which were stationary and vegetarian. With no system of writing or instruction, they passed the histories of their ancestors down by word of mouth. Lower Egypt, which is actually northern, was closer to the sea trade of the Mediterranean, and therefore prospered more in the form of civilized manners. Upper Egypt, which was actually in the south, stayed more isolated, but kept ancient traditions while prospering along the Nile River, where agriculture was starting to bloom. It was in this period that the ancient land received its new beginning. Recorded in the Emerald Tablets, though not archaeologically approved for public knowledge, the people of Upper Egypt, then called Khem, were visited by a ship that shimmered in the sunlight before completely blotting out the sun. The ship descended from the sky, and giant men and women stepped off onto a grassy plain where they were immediately attacked by the tribal warriors of Khem. And then this is the Emerald Tablet quote. Raging, they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. Then raised I, Thoth, my staff, and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone of the mountain. Then spoke I to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying we were children of the sun and its messengers. Cowed I them by my display of magic science until at my feet they groveled when I released them. Long dwelt we in the land of Khem, long and yet long again, until, obeying the commands of the Master, who while sleeping yet lives eternally, I sent from me the sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time wisdom might rise again in her children. Thoth, the Atlantean savior of the world, became Tehuti, lord of time, writing wisdom, magic, alchemy, medicine, science, mathematics, and astrology to the men of Khem. He taught them the secrets of the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. He gave them hieroglyphics as a primitive system of writing so that they could preserve the knowledge that he gave them and continue the traditions of Maat. In the beginning were the polarities of the all, Nu, which was chaos, and Maat, which was harmony. Their residence was the primordial waters, a deep abyss of darkness which contained all energies in their potential form. Sound familiar? For there to be primordial waters, there must also be an equal opposite. So the opposing plane of existence was a primordial mound, the Benben. The Benben was in the form of a pyramid, representing fire, and held the cosmic sphere, or the cosmic egg, wrapped with a serpent, from which all physical life emerged. If the origin of all spirit / idea is in the primordial waters, then the Benben was the primordial dryness. Earth, in Latin, is called terra. Terra is defined as that which is dry. And then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so, and God called the dry land earth. That's Genesis chapter 1. Dryness is as far from source as one can be without going into the underworld, which in Kemetic religion was called Duat. The desire for interaction between the positive and negative energies of Nu and Maat caused Heka, magical speech, to be manifested. Heka is the principle of vibration. It gives all energies communication capacities. It is the cosmic dance, which enables positive and negative energies to chase each other for all eternity. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Vibration is the reason sensory perception can be interpreted by the body and signaled to the mind, the cosmic serpent. It is the air quality of natural law, floating between the realms of existence, both separating and connecting them through various frequencies. The masculine and feminine energies of created things are dormant without this silent secret. Heka is not a word, but a whisper. The act of whispering in the divine breath is creation itself. Heka is motion, but motion is not something you do, it's something that operates through you. The positive and negative energies of chaos and harmony flowing from and circling each other Throughout thought-formed images is the magic of vibration. The power of Heka in the below is called magical speech. It is thrice invoked. Once when you pull the idea from the higher planes, once when you translate it into language, and once more when you turn it into a projected cause via the divine breath of Heka. From the cosmic dance of Nu, Mayat, and Heka, the Agdoad was manifested. 4 energies with their polarities emerged from this dance. These 4 divine energies were layers of the universal construct. Like the primordial gods of Greece, the Agdoad energies were extensions of the ideas which produced them. Each having their positive and negative qualities, they became the Kemetic primordial gods. Any action of a masculine deity was assumed to have interaction with its feminine polarity in order for the balance to be maintained. In this manner, the Kemetic gods differed from the Greek and Roman gods, whose counterparts were mostly opposite ideas. The polarities of Kemetic gods were masculine and feminine energies of the same ideas. Okay, so the Agdoad, you have the masculine for fire is Hawk, and the feminine is Hawket, right? And they represent, like, their force is formlessness and endlessness. That's what fire in the primordial realm in Egyptian lore represented. Formlessness and endlessness. Hawk and Hawket. Okay, and then for the earth element, you have Kuk and Kuket, right? You see the pattern here. It's all the females are the male, but et, right? So Kuk and Kuket, and their force was darkness and binding. And that's earth. And then the air was Amun and Amunet, right? And that their force was things that were hidden and also omnipresence, which is funny. So, and then for the water element, it's Nun and Nunet, and their force was waters and memory. So your fire, your earth, your air, your water, deities in primordial lore in Egypt. Boom. Hawk and Hawket, or He and He'et in some translations, were the personifications of endlessness and formlessness. These were the fire principles of the contents of chaos. Chaos is beyond time and form. There is no structure there. It is a place without order, but that does not mean it is a place without light. Harmony was the principle which opposed the chaos, but the two ideas were so evenly matched that they voided each other and the abyss was inactive. Their desire, fire, for interaction brought forth Heka, which was the first cause. When Hawk and Hawket were manifested, in effect, they introduced the principle of rhythm. In the celestial sea of vibration, where harmony and chaos are communicating through vibration, Hawk and Hawket were the rhythmic, balanced interchange necessary to produce a cadence. I love that sentence. The structure of the dance was manifested in the action of dancing. Formlessness is the primary aspect of the higher realms in that they are so far removed from the physical realm that their expressions of self are not limited to any form, but the rhythm of their interactions is very much alive in the higher planes. Even now in musical theory, Hawket is defined as an alternating rhythmic harmony between 2 or more voices. It's like a round. Kuk and Kuket, or Kek and Keket in some translations, were the personification of darkness. Darkness to the abyss was anything which would conceal its truth. For the created world, darkness is represented most intensely by the physical body, that which is dry. The abyss, containing chaos and Mayat, also contained all ideas in their potential form. Kuk and Kuket were the earthly elements manifested from the cosmic interaction of chaos and Mayat. Light casts no shadows. For shadows to exist, there must be a blockage interrupting the path of light. Kuk and Kuket were the personifications of that blockage. They were the creators of shadow, but not the shadow itself. In essence, they were the manifestation of matter, the binding power of materials, which acts as a vessel for light, the dancers through which the dance is performed. Amun and Amunet were the personifications of hiddenness. Lord of the hidden wind, Amun was connected with the direction east and the air element. Amun was the manifestation of consciousness, and Amunet was the manifestation of subconsciousness, each a power of light which is hidden within the darkness. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Amun's depiction was given a very tall crown reaching upward into the heavens. Amunet's crown was a double crown, signifying her mirroring qualities of Amun. The manifestations of rhythm and matter were guided by the manifestation of consciousness and subconsciousness. Now, any further extensions of creation from the abyss of chaos would have the capacity to make controlled actions. In other words, free will. Nun and Nunet were the water element deities born of the abyss. They were the primordial mist which gives memory and depth to the other elements, holding the stars in their balance, as Thoth reminds us. The waters of the primordial mist are not within the earth, but all about it. For the Lord had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground, but a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Genesis 2. Matter in the physical plane is swimming in a sea of astral matter, which is swimming in a sea of mental matter, and so forth up into the highest planes where matter is only a dream. The primordial mist is the sea which flows through all planes and holds all forms and ideas connected in its waters. In the physical plane, it is the moisture in the air, the morning dew, the tears dropping down your face, and the cerebrospinal fluid of a baby in the womb. This, in effect, is the shadow on the other side of the earth, which is produced by the light of the fire. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Genesis 1. With the creative forces of the Ogdoad in hand, the tetrahedron-shaped primordial mound, Atum, pulled the elements down from the heavens. Taking them inside himself, he blended with them and spat or breathed out Shu, air, and Tefnut, moisture. Shu was the next evolution of the air element. Air is consciousness and discernment. He was described as emptiness. Emptiness signifies that which fills the vessel. In other words, the vessel is full of potential. The potential for the contents of consciousness is unlimited. There is no limit to what we can learn. With all of our knowledge, we learn that there is always more to learn. Shu was the gift of separation, categorization, and comprehension. Tefnut was the personification of moisture. This is the water quality of air, the emotional aspect which drives us to learn more. The memory which water carries is ever present in the subconscious. The subconscious collects information while the consciousness interacts. The memories of each moment are stored within the subconscious for future recall. The very air we breathe is information which we take in and process every moment. And this moisture connects all formed images and their consciousness through a quantum entanglement, whereby every particle in every realm of existence is in communication with all others everywhere. From this cause, Shu and Tefnut created their effects, Geb, earth, and Nut, sky. Now that we have consciousness, we need some kind of container for it. Geb was the manifested effect of the creation of air and moisture. Each aspect of creation is a vessel for Shu and Tefnut. The sky, Nut, is the transition between the higher and lower planes. It is a filter for Yasad and the illusionary properties of refracted light. When information passes through Nut, it clothes itself in the matter of the realm it enters, and then manifests its expression in a manner relative to that plane. We here in the below cast our thoughts into the goddess Nut for processing. She translates our thoughts into abstract emotional concepts and passes them up into the higher realms, where they await us upon our body's death. In the same way, the higher realm energies create abstract ideas and desires which are passed down to Nut, where she processes them and puts them within our mind's reach. We then pull these ideas and desires from the sky and manifest them into our own reality experience. Much like the role of Chesed in the Tree of Life, or Chesed, I messed that up. Nut is the ambassador of higher and lower realm energies, translating energies into comprehensible forms for each side. Geb was a personification of the material plane, where thoughts become things. Manifestation into the lower plane of the physical world is a power of Heka, being translated through Nut. The pictorial representations of Geb are many, with various meanings attributed to them. Geb was known as the father of snakes, with a viper around his crown, representing his authority over them. Snakes, differentiated from serpents, in ancient Kemetic belief, were called sons of earth, and represented the material encased spirit. When Geb, the earth, opened his mouth like a snake, he could extend his jaws and allow life in or out. In this manner, he swallowed the spirits of the living, encasing them in their, or his, bodies, and also regurgitated them once their bodies had decomposed, and allowed the spirits of the living into the realm of spirit, or the higher planes. In sacred geometry, the earthly element is represented by the hexahedron, which is a cube, and parallels the sphere. The sphere is the third dimension of the circle. The sphere represents Nut, and the cube represents Geb. Both are unique to the rest of the shapes in existence, in that the Platonic solids are all able to fit inside one of these two shapes perfectly, with the points of the inner touching but not crossing the outer. But combine the cube and the sphere, and you've got the potential to manifest all life forms. In the spirit of creating life, Nut and Geb created 5 children. Here we go again with that number 5. Their children were Herwar, Osiris, or sometimes it's Asir, Set, Aset, which is also Isis, and Nebtet, right? Herwar, Osiris, Set, Isis, Nebtet. These were the Kemetic version of the Titan gods of Greece. They were a symbol of delegation of energies. Herwar was often called Horus the Elder. It was he who was represented by the hawk, and often confused with his nephew, Horus the Younger, who was represented by the falcon. Herwar was a sky god representing the upper atmosphere. His wings were said to hold the stars, and his eyes were the sun and moon. In this way, he was a personification of light, time, and cycles. Osiris, or Asir, was the god of rebirth. His dominion was Duat, the underworld. He represented fertility, as opportunity for new growth comes from the reaping of old growth. The death of the body was considered a sacred rite, which, if performed properly, would usher in the next life and eliminate suffering. As god of rebirth, he was also considered god of transformation. Having been in both realms of the living and the dead, Osiris was considered to be more powerful than his siblings. His brother, Set, was allegorized as his antagonist to the extent of being responsible for his murder. In the end, though, it was this death of the body which empowered Osiris in his role as guardian of souls, who passed between physicality and spiritual life. He was depicted with green skin to reflect his immortality and connection to the underworld. Asir, or Osiris, was paired with his sister, Aset, or Isis, the queen of heaven. She was the extension of Heka in the physical realm. Her breath was pure magic of manifestation, and her knowledge of the heavens and earth were unparalleled. She was the feminine equal to Osiris, being both mortal and immortal. Eventually, of course, she became blended in with the fertility goddesses and domesticated as patron of women, children, and women producing children. Her star was Sirius, which pointed to Osiris's constellation, Orion. Her portrait was drawn with her crown as an empty throne, signifying her role as queen of the throne. Her allegory describes her as an alchemist and a sage in the magic arts. She was proficient in necromancy as well as in her virgin birth story, though the deeper meanings to that story have been lost on civilization. Her son, supposedly with post-murdered Osiris, was named after his uncle Horus, the child. The child, Horus the Younger, was differentiated from his uncle in the myths by the name Haru Sa Aset, meaning Haru, son of Aset. He is the savior, Messiah, Jesus character of the newer Egyptian legends. Aset, sometimes called Ist, was first mortal, then immortal. Her story says that with a magical conjured serpent, she poisoned the primordial god Ra, literally the sun, and in a savage Lilith-like manner, required the knowledge of his true sacred name before she would cure him. Receiving this knowledge granted her immortality. This is very reminiscent of the Hebrew Jewish Midrash legend of Lilith, Adam's first wife, who was created as his equal, as opposed to Eve, who was created from his rib. Lilith was said to have denied a position of subordination to Adam, fallen in love with an angel, and taught by her angel the unspeakable name of God, grew wings, and left Adam looking lonely and dumb. In many academic opinions, Aset was the origin of both Lilith and Mary, mother of Jesus. In Aset's virgin birth legend, she was no virgin, but she gave birth to a son produced by Osiris at a time when Osiris had been deceased for quite some time. Harusa Aset and Jesus have the same celebrated birthday, winter solstice. Also, the Christian practice of baptism is a symbolic resurrection ceremony, much like the Osiris legend, which produces Harusa Aset. Neptet was the goddess of mourning, desert air, health, embalming, and beer. Her role, as polarity to her brother/husband Set, was to be the nurturing aspect of death and decay. As goddess of beer, she was responsible for the alcohol content produced in the fermentation of barley. She was also known as Lady of the House, in reference to the astrological houses of the Mazzaroth. Her association with houses later blended in with other female fertility and hearth goddesses, making her the protector of the civilian home. Set, the desert, was notoriously infertile. And so their story goes that in order to produce a child, Nebtet disguised herself as her sister, Aset, and seduced Osiris. The product of this mischief was both a renowned feud between the two brothers and a son called Anubis. Anubis was the god of the dead before Osiris took that role after his resurrection. He is depicted as a jackal-headed and known to weigh the hearts of men against the feather of Maat in order to turn back the souls of unworthy men as they try to cross over from life in the body to life in the underworld. From this tradition, Christianity created the concept of repentance for past sins by profession to the priest, who has the authority of God to forgive men on God's behalf. Often depicted alongside Aset, she is shown mourning the death of her brother, Osiris, and even said to have aided Aset in the magical resurrection ceremony and preparations. Having been given the knowledge of necromancy from God, Thoth, the two sisters, alongside Anubis, completed the rite and were able to reincarnate Osiris for a short time. Nebtet was a personification of the feminine energy of emotional intelligence, in contrast to Aset, who was the personification of the feminine energy of creative intelligence. Nebtet was represented by the vulture, who was a desert creature of air. Set, the antagonist of the Ogdoad deities, was the god of the desert, oases, storms, violence, disorder, and foreigners. Like Thoth, Set was associated with the planet Mercury. His constellation was the Great Black Boar, which was known to swallow the moon each month, resulting in the phases of the moon. His depiction was of an unknown creature with the body of a man. The Set animal was some combination of a fox, a jackal, an aardvark, and a donkey, all ritually unclean animals. His association with evil was developed over time as the ancient peoples forgot that darkness does not equal bad. His violent outbursts were reflected in storms, earthquakes, and eclipses. This negative aspect of masculine energy is a reminder that there is much conflict within the man who has no regard for his personal emotional health. Further stabilized by the concept of not giving his wife/sister a child. In some accounts, Set was not such an asshole. His role in the defense of the sun as it crossed the underworld each night was pivotal. He is depicted as spearing the dark serpent Apep, who would constantly attempt to swallow the sun to prevent it from returning to the world of the living each morning. This is an example of the usefulness of strength in overcoming obstacles. While the other sky gods were known for their intelligence and good nature, it was Set who reminded the ancient land of Khem that sometimes you have to get your hands dirty in order to preserve the harmony of the land. The Christian equivalent to Set was Cain, son of Adam, who murdered his brother in a violent rage of jealousy. The same could be said of Romulus and Remus of ancient Rome. In the Greek tradition, Set is akin to Ares, though not as a god for war, or Mars, but as the representation of masculine strength, both in battle and of nature. A few other critical concepts of ancient Kemetic religion were the concept of the everlasting soul, Ba, the shadow, Ka, the sons of Horus, the lower chakras, and Duat, the astral plane. These concepts were not as openly worshipped, but were pillars of the belief system. Thoth says in the Emerald Tablets, Ba is the essence living forever. Ka is the shadow that man knows as life. Ba cometh not until Ka is incarnate. This is the same belief system as the Hindu Atman, or soul. The shadow, Ka, is the reality projected by the soul through the mortal body, the matrix world of virtual reality wherein the soul of man experiences lessons in suffering. Once completed, the journey of man leaves the created reality of sensory perceptions, and if this intention is pure, he may pass through the astral plane into the realm of the gods. If not, his heart is eaten by the demon Amit. The sons of Horus are Imseti, Dudameth, Happy, forgive me, and Kebensnef, who are guardians of the portal. They're your lower chakras, okay? Imseti is the Swadhisthana. Dudameth is the Manipura. Happy is the Anahata. And the one I can't pronounce is the Muladhara, are guardians of the portal. The Anahata and the Muladhara are guardians of the west, representing the realm of earth and mist. The Swadhisthana and the Manipura are guardians of the east, representing mentality and will, air and fire. These are the equivalent to the four sons of Japus in Greek mythology. Their role in funerary rites was to contain the internal organs of the dead in order to safeguard these affiliated body parts while the crossover was occurring. Aset, the great mother of the dead, was said to protect them in their duties, being queen of the moon, reflecting the sun, as Thoth describes it. Thoth was not a child of Nut, Geb, Tefnut, or Shu. His appearance is somewhat a mystery to Egyptologists. Ancient writings reference Thoth as being self-born, hatched from the head of Set, or emerging from the Duat. The Emerald Tablets describe his role as having been a man of the third race, the Atlanteans, who taught this whole system of beliefs to the Kemetic people. It was deified for his knowledge. He was deified for his knowledge later by the people, but did not insert himself into the allegories as he used to explain the creation process. He taught the system of hieroglyphics so that the children of Khem could have understanding even after he passed on into Duat. Incorporating into Greek pantheons, he was the god Hermes Trismegistus, meaning Hermes, thrice great. His title of thrice great is an occult reference to having been mortal, died, and resurrected as immortal into the mortal world by his choice. Having been given the choice to either return to the mortal world of shadow or live in the holy land of the field of reeds, he chose to return to the mortal realm in order to teach mankind how to ascend their consciousness as he did. Thoth made sure to teach them the cycles of stars. The progression of the equinox and the movements of the constellations were a map Thoth left them to follow. In reading the stars, they would never be lost or unprepared. The Kemetic calendar was broken into 3 periods of 120 days. These periods were categorized by the characteristics of daily life the people of ancient Kemet encountered. The first cycle of 120 days was called Akhet, or induation, and that was like September to January. During this time, the star of Sirius would rise and bring about the annual flooding of the Nile River. The next cycle of 120 days was called Peret, or emergence. It was their winter season, January to May. The last cycle was called Shimu, or harvest. This was their summer season. Each cycle of the year was 4 months long, with each containing 30 days. These 30 days were subdivided into groups of 10 days, each 10 days being called a decade. Each decade was commanded by a deacon, or a principal constellation. The deacons were important aspects to the astrological charts of events. A ceremony or birth which occurred within the dominion of a particular deacon was said to be under its influence. In modern astrology, the deacons still hold. A child born under the sun sign of Libra in the first decan has a different karmic demeanor than a child born under the same sign in the second or third decan. Every aspect of the stars held a particular position on the chart and added to its description. At the end of the year were 5 days, which were separated from the cycles of months. These 5 days were said to have been bargained for by the god Thoth himself. The way the story goes, these were the days of the births of each of Nut's 5 children. She was said to be infertile for the rest of the year. The 5 added days gave the Kemetic calendar a full 365-day year. A lunar calendar was also utilized in ancient Khemet for the purpose of rituals and sunless hours. Crescent moon appearances marked a starting point for calculations, and the full and new moons were cataloged as specific dates. It was dependent upon the rite whether the month, decade, decan, and lunar positioning were right for the occasion. All of these factors were considered before ceremonies were planned and held. Each constellation held sway for night rituals, and the positioning of them was considered as they would have effects on the outcome or acceptance of the ceremonial intent. There was also a deeper purpose for the timing ceremonies with the stars. The power of the cosmos was harnessed by the ancient Kemetic people for their purposes. It is relative to a cell phone tower in modern times. The pyramidions, or obelisks, as they were later called by the Greeks, were much like antennas reaching out to the stars to receive power, while at the same time digging deep into the earth to distribute it. Like a wand crystal, the capstone of the great towers aligned with certain constellations at certain times of the year and distributed energy as required by the earth. Star charts were originally kept for measurements and calculations of time. In the later developments of trades with the outside cultures, the comparisons between the charts of Khemet and others from around the world led to updates and add-ons. Thoth records the teachings of the ancient religious system in the Emerald Tablets. And we're quoting again because it's Thoth. List ye, O man, to the deep hidden wisdom, lost to the world since the time of the dwellers, lost and forgotten by men of this age. Know ye this earth is but a portal, guarded by powers unknown to man. Yet the dark lords hide the entrance that leads to the heaven-born lands. Know ye that the way of the sphere of Arulu is guarded by barriers opened only to light-born man. Upon earth, I am the holder of the keys of the gates of the sacred land. Command I, by the powers beyond me, to lead the keys to the world of man. Before I depart, I give you the secrets of how ye may rise from the bondage of darkness. Cast off the fetters of flesh that have bound ye. Rise from the darkness into the light. Know ye the soul must be cleansed of its darkness ere ye may enter the portals of light. Thus I establish among ye the mysteries, so that the secrets may always be found. I, though man may fall into darkness, always the light will shine as a guide. Hidden in darkness, veiled in symbols, always the way to the portal be found. Man in the future will deny the mysteries, but always the way the seeker will find. Now I command ye to maintain my secrets, giving only to those who have been tested, so that the pure may not be corrupted, so that the power of truth may prevail. List ye now to the unveiling of mystery. List to the symbols of mystery I give. Make of it a religion, for only thus will its essence remain. Regions there are 2, between this life and the great one, traveled by souls who depart from this earth. Duat, the home of the powers of illusion. Sekhet Hespet, the house of the gods. Osiris, the symbol of the guard of the portal, who turns back the souls of unworthy men. Beyond lies the sphere of the heaven-born powers. Arulu, the land where the great ones have passed. There, when my work among men has been finished, will I join the great ones of my ancient home. 7 are the mansions of the house of the mighty. 3 guards the portal of each house from the darkness. 15 the ways that lead to Duat. 12 are the houses of illusion, facing 4 ways, each of them different. 40 and 2 are the great powers, judging the dead who seek for the portal. 4 are the sons of Horus. 2 are the guards of east and of west. Isis, the mother who pleads for her children. Queen of the moon, reflecting the sun. Ba is the essence living forever. Ka is the shadow that man knows as life. Ba cometh not until Ka is incarnate. These are the mystery to preserve through the ages. Keys are they of life and of death. The precession of the equinox is also a very important aspect of ancient Kemetic astrology. The fact that it was understood long ago, forgotten, and then rediscovered by later astrologists was just a great mystery to modern scholars. The Kemetic scholars were not the only ones with this knowledge. though there was some debate about who found it first. India, China, and Central America were notoriously aware of the 24,000 to 26,000 year cycle, which constitutes an age or an eon. It is said that this was also a day in the biblical creation time. Vedic astrology calls this time period a Yuga cycle. And then it goes into ancient India, which we did last video. So, yeah, shit. I thought it was going to be longer than that. Okay, so I love ancient Khemet. Obviously, I'm obsessed with Thoth and the Emerald Tablets. But there you go, boom. And okay, so remember in the book, like the way that I write it is astrology and history. I start from now and I go like back in time. But the way that I did the videos was opposite that. So I started at the oldest one and I'm working my way. I don't know why I did that, but yeah. So that was like my segue into astrology in India, which we already did. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions.